most famously said, which is that there are only two certainties in life: death and taxes. So in 1988, the tax code was revised to make this liability protection a little easier to get. I'm not going to say it's easy to get, but it's a little easier to get, and there are three separate avenues to get it. There's the traditional relief, a separation of liability relief, and then there's equitable grounds. But again, the whole purpose of this tax liability shield is to permit a spouse who's been wronged by the other spouse from crushing financial liability when they really didn't and were not the recipients of the tax benefit that the other spouse got. And they're not responsible for the actions of the other bad actor spouse. Now, why this is critical in Texas especially is because Texas is a community property state. So that means all the gains and liabilities and losses acquired during the course of a marriage are presumed community. They're community assets, and that means, and community liabilities. So that means that a tax liability from husband and a joint return was filed by husband and wife, that tax liability is presumptively a community liability, which means both spouses equally responsible. And this is where the doctrine is especially helpful for the citizens of our state and other community property states. So a couple things to know. There are, like any claim and controversy, there are certain factors that have to be met by the innocent party. One, they have to request that relief timely, and that is there's a 24-month statute of limitations. There's a statute of limitations on just about every right to relief in the law, and so big thing is you got to know when your limitations runs, and that's when the IRS puts you on notice of this tax liability. And then so that 24-month clock needs to start ticking in your mind. The minute you're on notice, you get some sort of tax deficiency letter that you're liable for the tax errors and omissions of a spouse or former spouse. You need to know that you need to make that request to the IRS within 24 months. And then two, you're going to have to meet certain conditions to show your entitlement to that relief. Those affirmative evidence by the requesting spouse's part that they didn't know about the deficiencies and the liabilities that were misrepresented by the other spouse at the time that the return was filed, and that they had no reason to know about those errors and omissions in the return at the time of the filing. And in addition to that, the requesting spouse is also going to need to show that it would be unfair, it would offend the principles of equity, that innocent spouse be held liable for the tax misrepresentations that created these liabilities by the other party, by the other spouse. So those are the factors that have to: one, a timely request for relief; two, that there would be an inequity in placing those liabilities on the innocent spouse, and then in addition to that, that the innocent spouse did not know and would have no reason to know at the time of the filing of the return about those misrepresentative facts or liabilities in the return itself.